Perfect. So now we're going to be recording. You don't have to have your cameras on. It is going to be recorded and uploaded. So if you don't want to have the information, you can also just kind of disable it. If you want to leave it on, that's fine as well. This is just going to be a overview. So it's called the TOPSpro Enterprise Overview. We're going to kind of break this up into 3 sections. I'm Luke Philly with CASAS Tech Support. I've worked as a data manager with an agency for about 10 years. And then I was hired on with CASAS for about 7 months now. The other presenters are going to be Oscar and Martha. Oscar, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. This is Oscar Peña. You might, have worked with me. We might have worked together. I have been in CASAS for, I would say, about 7 years, or starting 7 years, perhaps. And yes, I'm part of the group, and we're here to assist you. Thank you.
And then Martha, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Martha Perez. I am with Tech Support. Been with CASAS a little bit over 10 years, and we'll be happy to assist you. And we'll see you later in this training.
All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. And let's do screen 2. Or no, because I believe we determined that this would be a little easier for everyone. Can everyone see my screen a little better this way?
Yes.
Okay. So when you were trying to download TOPSpro Enterprise, you'll want to go to the etestonline.org. And you'll notice you have some options. You have install the TE client in the top left. You have take a test in the center. And then if you're a coordinator and proctor, you can then do the sign in the top right. So your logins for eTest and TOPSpro Enterprise are connected. So it'll be the same, login for both of those. However, if you go to the CASAS.org website, there'll be a separate login and password. One thing you need to make sure of is when you're typing it in the address bar, you have different servers. And so notice how it's like the ca.etestonline.org. And then, there's also, an etestonline/Washington. If you're just trying to download TE client, it's all the same. But if you're trying to log into the eTest side, if you're trying to take a test or sign in, you want to make sure you're connecting to the correct server. It's very important. So when you click the install TE, it will download. Now, if you're using a Mac, or if you're like on a tablet, an iPad, a Chromebook, you're not going to be able to install the client. Okay, so the TOPSpro operates on the Windows operating system. If you have a Mac, if you have another program to kind of run the system, like if you have like Boot Camp or something like that, that's going to allow you to actually install, Windows computers and get them working. But if not, essentially you'll just Windows 10, Windows 11 should be fine. If you do need, for some reason, a 32-bit, you can always contact CASAS Tech Support and we can provide that. But for most users, you'll click Install TE and you'll be able to install it. When you click it, it's also going to have an icon on your desktop. It'll install. So let me go ahead and switch the share just so you guys can kind of see what that's going to look like. So let me just do, so if you notice up here in the very top, it kind of does this icon. And then it will load automatically or we'll double click and I'll switch it now to just the TOPSpro. So it's a little easier for you guys. And share. And now you guys should be seeing the TOPSpro Enterprise. So what we're going to do is connect to the Rolling Hills simulation server. And so again, just like when we were at the browser, you had all those options of like the California, the global, Lyric, Washington. We have these server options. You want to make sure you choose the Rolling Hills for the simulation. Now, a way you can do that is going to like, oh, I don't know what, my login or what can I use? And that's where we'll go back to, if you go to the CASAS homepage, you can just type in Rolling Hills in the search. So you can also go through, like if you're doing training, and access that way, but the search function is very, very helpful. So if it's something very specific and not like a general question, you can kind of type in exactly what you need. So we'll go ahead and search for that, and it'll pop up some, depending on your ad blocks, you may have some ads. Google has ads. You'll notice there's a line here to kind of distinguish between them. Underneath, you'll now notice steps to access the simulation server. You'll click on that, and this will kind of launch the simulation server information. It's a fictitious testing site essentially for you guys. So if you're brand new and you're kind of worried, again, here's, if you need to do e-test, there's the link right there. But yeah, so the exact same thing. You'll set up the Rolling Hill simulation as your server, and then you'll have your agency ID is 4908, and then you have username. So if you wanted to practice like the administrator, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 60, and then the password will be admin. So if you scroll down, you'll see administrator's admin, coordinator access is coordinator, proctor's proctor, teacher's teacher. And they are case sensitive, so make sure you kind of keep them lowercase there. And so this is a good way just to remember, hey, how do I do this? Oh, that's right, I can go to the CASAS and kind of type in that search, and then it'll pull up, scroll past the ads, and kind of click into this. And now that we kind of remember, okay, we have some good information, we'll go ahead and go back over to TOPSpro. And let me share the TOPSpro side. And so I'm going to use 10 because it's the best number. I'll go ahead and sign in using the password admin, and we'll go ahead and connect. And it takes a little bit of time. So if you were trying to connect, say, like your data manager or somebody gave you your username and password and said, here's your information, make sure you're connecting to the right server and you're connecting to the correct agency. So you couldn't use your login information in this simulation. You'd have to use one of those admins or proctors or coordinators, those types of accounts. So if you do call tech support and you forgot your agency or you don't want to log out, a trick is if you highlight TE in the very top left corner, it kind of lets us know that we're connected to the Rolling Hills server, agency 4908, user administrator 10 at rhas.org. And so that's a kind of a quick reminder to kind of pull up some information. So there's menus and options within here. And sorry about that. So if you click on TE, you're going to see the lock. So you can so if you're just going to lock it or pause it or walk away, you can kind of lock it and log back in. You can also disconnect, which will disconnect you from TE. You can change the password. You need to change your password. You can also go into the options. You can also exit to close it. And so when you first start it up, you see this start page. And the reason why I'm going to bring up the start page now is you can disable it. Some people don't like the start page to instantly start up. Sometimes it's very friendly and very nice. You'll see alerts and notifications. You'll see some CASAS news. You also have like some shortcuts you can kind of design or reports, but the alerts and notifications and the CASAS news are kind of nice just to look at. Even if you don't use any of this, even if you don't pull anything up or use it at all, just having the start page on and seeing if there's an alert like, hey, here's a new release, you might want to look at it, or if something's going on, or if there's a bug, or if it seems like there's connection. It's nice to kind of have those alerts and notifications to kind of keep you involved with CASAS and see what's going on live time. The other thing is in the top right-hand side, you'll also notice the user, administrator, and the version and build. Now, right now it's gray. If you notice that it turns yellow, that means you're kind of having a disconnection problem. So if you're getting some bugs or you're trying to do some merges or you're trying to change some information, it's like giving you errors or it's not changing it, what could happen is you might have timed out or lost internet. And so now if you notice, oh, this is yellow, then you've probably lost connection. You might want to kind of log out and log back in and see if you can reconnect to the server. And so when I was talking about the TE and the options, that's where you can kind of go to beyond start. And you can actually disable that, right? You can uncheck it if you would like. It also gives you warnings. Again, this is just a very general overview, but you can definitely go into all your options, look at them, go to the listers. Maybe you want to show all your listers instead of just a few. But you can kind of go through all these little options you have as far as the main component of TE itself. But again, there's many options, and this is just a general overview. You've got general questions, you know, Martha, Oscar are going to answer them, but if you have something super specific or very detailed, always email us. You can always call us. The other option is maybe it's kind of hard to see. So if you go to view, you're going to be able to, or maybe you want to see more. So you can go super small, you can go normal, there's a medium, and there's a large. So depending on like if you kind of need a little larger font and you know you're not sure about changing or not using the magnifier, you can go to the view right here and kind of change these options. There's also tabs just like on your web browsers. So I'm going to say, you know what, I don't need the start page, so I can just click it off. But yeah, the view. So I like normal. It's kind of your default, but you can always change that. Organization is kind of the association with your agency itself. So when you think of most things for your agency, you're going to think organization. So this is where you're going to be able to see your agencies, the sites that are attached to your agency, the classes are kind of attached to the sites, your users are attached. So this is kind of your agency setups. You can see like certain things, your testing stations, your testing sessions, and there's menus. So there's also submenus. So for this one, for classes, I have definitions and instances. And so when there's an arrow, I have more options. Records, think of records as more of the student side, things that can be attached to a student. And so when you're going to records, here's my students, there's, I can see their demographics or the students in a certain program here or their actual student records. And then classes, because it's under the records, this is also going to show like the student class records, the student records with their hours and stuff. Same with the programs, you see the enrollments, the records, the tests, show all the test records that they've taken. Things like that are kind of associated on that student level. Reports, those are more going to be able to, you'll be able to run a report and pull information. And there's even, you can do like bar graphs and circle graphs and kind of pull that information to a little more simple, to a simple report that you can kind of show somebody or give to your teachers, or you can use or maybe give to your students to kind of give them an idea. And so when you go to the CASAS test, here's some testing information, demographics, the detail, you can do summaries, more hour information, program outcomes, some with their programs, test results. So now this is where, this is the first time we're going to have sub-menus of submenus, right? So now we can run skills profile, and we have two different types of skills profile. We can do the individual skills or a summary. And so this is where it layers upon layers upon layers of kind of information. And so if you have the time, you can really get into the weeds here. And so just know if you keep seeing that arrow, you're going to have more options, right? Learner Gains has 4 more options. And so test history kind of shows you the test. Your data management, your NRS reports, my reports, you can kind of go through quite a bit of the submenus, right? The Fed reports, the states. Again, this isn't for a specific stage or a specific thing, it's just an overview, but the tools is going to kind of give you these wizards. And the wizards are essentially going to guide you through a process of doing something. So instead of a report where you'll be setting something up, a wizard is where you're going to kind of go through the process to bring something in. So an example would be in the scanning wizard, we have to open up the scanning wizard, and we're then going to choose, is this a new scanning session? Yes, it is. The next page, go to the next page. What kind of scanner are you using? So we'll go ahead and select our scanning wizard. Then it'll be, the next page. What type of items are you scanning in? Are they entries? Are they tests? Are they update records? Great, we'll go ahead and update, test records. And then you would scan them. And then, you would then bring them into the system and say, would you like to review? Here's some of the problems, this doesn't make sense. Can you please fix it? And so it's a wizard essentially guiding you through a process of scanning or importing with the third import or replication. And so it's a little more detailed. And so these are called wizards. Or if you do have to do core performance or submissions, you would do that through the tools. The help is also very nice. So if there's an update and you say, you just kind of click through and you didn't read it all, you can go back into the release notes and, kind of see, oh, what was updated? And kind of pull that up, and it kind of opens in Word. Or if you want to see, the user license agreement, you can pull that up and read exactly what you said. Yes, I'm going to abide by all the rules. And so that's kind of just the overview of how you have menus and submenus. Some of the things we now need to do is when you go to reports, I'm going to show you a few different ways to, is there any questions with just, general submenus or some of the tools or options, or does everyone kind of just get navigating TE? So when things are not necessarily highlighted, so like right now, you'll notice that it's kind of grayed. I don't have access. So the administrator 10 doesn't have access on the Rolling Hills client to graduation reports and things like that. And so depending on your group access, so if you were logging into your specific agency and maybe you were just a coordinator proctor and you didn't necessarily have a T admin basic or a T enhanced user access, when you log into TE, it will let you log in, that way if you need to kind of cover your password, you can click cover password or forgot password. But when you go to some of these options, they might not be available to you because of an access level. And so that's where you would kind of talk to your data manager and say, hey, I need to have access to some of this information. Like when I click on records, I can't go to my test, but I need to be able to go to the test to look up tests. I don't want to just do it in that. So essentially, you just don't have those access rights. Yep, just like Oscar was saying. And so you can contact your data manager and they can kind of add those in there. So that's why you might be seeing some of your gray menus. So we'll go ahead and I'll kind of show you some of the options for if we're going to do a demographic summary. And this is where it gets so now we're actually going to open up the report, right? We're actually going in, and some people, when they do reports, they'll just click generate. And that's fine. And so I'll go ahead and collapse some of these just to kind of go over it. So you have this session name. Now you can rename it here if you would like. You could also leave it, and then when you save it or export it, you can save it, rename it. But it doesn't matter, right? Or just demographic summary, and I'll name it later. I don't need to worry about it, right? You have that option here. Under common filters, this is just a little expand and collapse. That way it's not everything. For this specific report, we just have the program years. Now you'll notice that you have circles on this report. And so we can't select multiple years, right? We can only select one. And so the current fiscal year is, 21-22, which is 7/1 to 6/30. But when you see a circle, that means you can only make one selection. On some reports, you'll notice that this is a check mark and it's a box. And when you see boxes, you'll actually be able to kind of select a couple. When it's a circle, it's just the one program year. When you do the date ranges, you can kind of change the date ranges perfectly, right? There's also fiscal year, you can do it by a month. You can do last fiscal, you can change it month to date. And you can also just manually type it in as well. But since I want the whole year, I don't, I don't have to do that. I'm not going to type anything in. This is just the fast way to do it. Same thing with record date. Gives you those for record dates, not just the activity dates. The output layout parameters. Again, it's just going to show you the report sort order, program, the agency, the site, the class level. And so you can kind of change that, or for the most part, just leave it the same. So now you have some charts. So some people like to have charts. So I like pie charts. Let's add a pie chart. Reporting level. Do we want the agency, the site, the class? Maybe you need to break this down by the instructional program. And so as you kind of go through here, you can then click, let's break it on instructional program. You're like, I need it for the whole agency. Let's not break it down by, your ESLs or your HSEs or your ABEs. Let's just leave it for everybody. You can also break down the decimals. And so as this is kind of your setup, and so you're kind of slowly going through, seeing all the options, special options. Again, here's now, do they have this? Do they have gender? Do they have program? You can kind of add all these things in, right? And show class personnel, teacher, or caseworker. Some agencies have caseworkers, so it gets detailed. And so this is the general settings setup. So if you notice on the left-hand side, we have the report setup navigator. And so I'm under general settings. So when you run a report, you'll have the navigator on the left-hand side, which sometimes will slightly vary, but for the most part, you'll have most of the same things. And then under general settings is kind of how you want to set up that specific report. And so if I go to class personnel, I could run it for teachers if we have a teacher set up. I can run it by a class instance, like, hey, I just want to run the one class. Where can we? Yep, thank you, Oscar. And so, student program years. So if you maybe just want one specific student, or maybe student records, you just want to make sure you have full. And then enrollments again, or program enrollments. And so you have these options to also kind of change it. Report selection is going to show the demographic summary is what we're running. And so if we click generate, this is how you're actually going to create this report. And so it might take a little bit of a moment, but then you'll see that, it has SSN, because it was one of the items we had. Yes versus the no's. We have little pie charts if you want that. You don't have to have that. And so this is where you can kind of have some fun and go through it and change the settings, like, oh, I don't need all this info. Like, this is just too much information there. I don't like the pie charts. I'd rather just have more information on the page. You would have that option, but some people like when they're putting reports together or things like that, the pie charts are kind of nice, or bar graphs, or to kind of show it and mix it up and to kind of have that variability, or maybe they would just have this to make it a little simple for people. And so this is one report. Another report that gets a little, I'll kind of show you a little more difference, is going to be the competencies. So if I go to, yes, so when you print this out, yeah, so some people, like you were saying, maybe they're going through WASC and they would like to have some pie charts. So if some of the reports have it, you can absolutely use this information and kind of have it from CASAS already prepared in a pie chart, instead of going through Excel or other programs to kind of do that. And so say you need this and you want a physical copy, you can click print and you can print it out. Say you don't want to do that necessarily and you want to have it and you want to export it. So this is where you can kind of export it to Adobe, or on some other ones, maybe you want it in Excel, or maybe you want it in a Word. But you have these options up here where you can export it and save it onto your computer, and then you can print it later. Or if you want to print it now, you can also print it and then, print it physically. So you have the physical sheet right there. So if you wanted to print a report out and give it to a teacher, you could do that, or essentially export it, save it, email it to a teacher. And so that's why you have those options. And you can change the color scheme as well. There's also the color scheme. And so since I've got a few minutes, I'll quickly do let's see if I can do a quick competency, like student competency, just to kind of show you what happens when we start changing variables. So again, the same thing happens. We have all of this information with the general settings, right? And we have and this time we have those squares that we were talking about, right? So we could select multiple years. In the class stats, again, we have active, completed. So we have all these different ones. And so that's why it's nice to kind of go into Rolling Hills sometimes and just experiment. You can go in, experiment, just know that the changes you make will also stay in that. It gets reset every night, so don't worry about, you know, deleting things or things like that. But if you upload anything or put anything in there, it will be in the system, so anybody that logs in can see it. And so if I'm just going to do this real quick, say I want to do just a class, and I'm going to hope that there's this class, and I'll click generate, and we'll see what happens. Excuse me. Perfect. So all of a sudden, this report is very detailed, right? You'll notice that it's position, correct, you know, yes. And, you know, every single question kind of gets broken down. And so you'll notice that I had a new tab. So you say, oh, I don't like that. You can just click the tab up here. And like, where can I go? As again, here's, you know, color options, you know, maybe green this time, or black and white, right? Let's try, what if I just do the task, right? And what if I don't want to break it on form level? You know, and you can, and that's the thing, there's so many details, you know, you can really get lost, but it's the little things, you know, you'll slowly build up these skills. So now I'm just going to change a couple things. And now instead of it being every single detail, now it's just task 2, 4, 3, and 1, and this is what they're getting right. Okay, that's a lot different. And so that's where these little changes can completely change your report. And so that's where you can kind of have that experiment, you know, experiment, change settings. Don't be afraid to do that, right? You're not going to harm anything. You're just learning. And so a quick way is just kind of going back. And so let's say you want to get rid of all that. You can always click the little X's and close them just like normal. Or you can also go to the pages and, you know, close all the pages if it gets a little crazy. And that way you can kind of get out of it. And then when you're done, you know, always you can disconnect, the exit, and that can get you out. And so I think we're pretty much right on time. So I believe we have a little poll, if I'm not mistaken. I think we have a little questionnaire poll. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing. Let me see if I can launch that. So hopefully a poll might have popped up for a moment. Which operating system is compatible with Topstroke Enterprise? Operating system, it says. Mac, Apple computers? Is it Chromebooks? Is it Windows 10 or above? And so they're talking about the operating system. And it looks like everyone's going with Windows 10 or above. Oh, a couple Chromebooks, couple Macs. Oh, okay, maybe people are not sure. Okay. Michelle says, sadly, Windows and no Mac. For the operating system, that is correct. So I'll go ahead and end that poll. So what you have to do if you do have a Mac is you want to make sure, I guess we could share it. You need to make sure you have like another program to kind of turn it into that Windows environment, right? You want to either do like the boot camp or something else, and then essentially you're kind of running Windows within the Mac, and that which turns into essentially a PC at that point. But behind the PC also works. All right, and Oscar, why don't you go ahead and share the next section?
Thank you very much, Luke. Hello, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and cover the next part of the outline. If you do not have the outline, please do know that it's there included in the chat box. I put it multiple times. It's that PDF file that's called Overview TOPSpro Enterprise TE. So go ahead and download that PDF so you can go ahead and, kind of follow in an outline form. So I'll be doing sections 4, 5, and 6. 4 is customizing list and records. 5 is using the Navigator, and 6 is editing student information. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. If the team can go ahead and confirm that my TE screen is viewable now.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. All right, very good. So following from the outline, step 4, customizing list of records. So we're going to go ahead and go to records. As you might know, there's different ways of viewing the information in TE. List is one, and list is basically just like your Excel spreadsheet. Reports will be another way, but list will be, like your Excel spreadsheet. So if you go to records, anything that you find under records will be, or most of the things I should say that you find under records will be in a list form. So for the purpose of this practice here, we're going to go to records, students, and demographics. Records, students, and demographics. What you're expecting to see in this list is a list of all the students that are active in this program year. And I repeat, active in this program year. So you might ask, well, what is active? Well, active is basically any student that has entered information with the date. It could be an entry, it could be an update, it could be a class enrollment, it could be a test, but demographic alone does not contain a update. So some of the users might run into this problem that, hey, I just enter my demographic information for such student, a new student, perhaps to register a new student, but I don't see it when I go to record student demographics. That is true because the student does not have activity yet. So we're going to go to one of those exercises, further along the process here. But just keep in mind that your listers, not just demographic, all listers would only show students that are active in the current program year. All right, so having said that, we're going to go ahead and kind of do a little overview of what you're seeing over here on the screen. So starting with your tab, that you're in the student tab, and you have the new button and enroll button. So that's basically to create a new enrollment, to create a new record. To the right of that, you have your pull down menu for the agency. And if you click down below, you see the sites that are available. It all depends how many sites your agency has. Obviously, we're dealing with Rolling Hills, our fictitious a server. So Rolling Hills has only one site at the moment. So there's your agency, there's your site. Then we're going to go ahead and skip subsites for now. It does not, pretend to be straining. And then you have your filter button. Filter button, as the name says, it sets all the default filters for this lister. Remember, we were talking about students with activity. If you were to remove this option over here, current program year, notice that there's a little X right here to remove it, then that option will be removed. So if we were to remove it, notice the count over here, it's 803. If I am to remove it, obviously now it's going to go ahead and show me anybody, any student without activity or with activity. So we're going to go ahead and say, okay, look, the count is now, it's sorting over here, it's 6,716. All right, so again, this is a combination of those students that have activity and those students who don't have activity. All right, so for the purpose of this training, we're just going to go ahead and back to your default, and that's going to go ahead and set my let's see, is that current program year. Let's go ahead and put current program year back again and say, okay. So it's going to take me back to that original number that we were looking, 803. All right, so following to the next button over here, columns. As you can see, the format of this lister is by columns. you have the columns. You can move them left and right by clicking and dragging if you want to. But if you want to, show additional columns, one way of doing so will be by clicking on columns. Notice that these are the default columns selected for this type of lister, but you can also add anything else. Let's say, let's go ahead and add age. I'm going to go ahead and add age. I want to go ahead and add also, let's see, address. Those who have address, let's go ahead and have address. And I can scroll down and, let's go ahead and a lot of the attendance systems, third-party attendance systems, for example, they have last name first, and then, but we can go ahead and do this. So last name. All right. So doing that, we're gonna go ahead and say okay. So I'm scrolling down and say okay. So notice now I have age over here. I have a little scroll bar on the bottom, and I have address, and somewhere over here I should have the name. So let's see, name. There you go. So interesting. Let's see over here. I guess it didn't take address, age, native language. Okay, so let me go ahead and scroll to the right over here. We're going to go ahead and remove this column. We're going to go through a little exercise over here, which pretends still to the column section. We're going to go ahead and right click on the name section, and we're going to go ahead and say hide full name. Whatever you right click, it's going to give you this full menu, which again is the same thing as you were to click on that columns button. It's just a faster way to do it. So again, I'm right clicking on the header, on the title section of the column, and I get this menu. The top option will be to hide that specific column. So we're going to go ahead and hide this. Now I'm going to go ahead and right click back again and bring the column for full name, or let's say last name first. There you go. So last name, or even better, let's do this. Let's go ahead and do last name separately. Notice here's my last name. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go ahead and bring the first name separately too. In this way, I can go ahead and filter or sort. Notice that this is my filter button, and this is icon, and this is my sorting icon. So either one of those can be used to find a certain student. Now, by separating these two students, I can go ahead and sort by last name by clicking on this arrow. Notice how it changed from that diamond, which is basically 2 arrows up, pointing up and down, to now either ascending or descending order. So I can do it by last name, I can do it by first name, and so forth. So that gives me a little more, flexibility. All right. So moving along with the buttons over here, sort. So we talk about this sort button over here, but you can also have this, a button over here, whether you want to sort it. It's a little more, detailed. This is a little faster if you click over here. Here's another quick tip over here. Notice that all the columns have that sort button, right? So, but if you want to set different levels of sorting, I can go ahead and say, first, I want to sort by ID, right? Okay, so whether it's ascending or descending, you just click, once again, and it goes from ascending to descending. But if I hold my control button and then click on anything else, let's say I want to secondly sort it by last name. Notice what happens. My student ID sort button turns to 1, and then my last name column has a number 2. So now I can go ahead and first sort it by student ID, secondly sort it by last name. I can continue doing this, and they say I want to do a third sorting, and that third sorting will be by age. So now I have, a third level of sorting. So again, you can go crazy with this. There's different levels of sorting. There's different levels of filtering, all to find that student. So next button, delete button. Be careful with that. Remember, you're dealing with a live database. Obviously, we have a fictitious, we're working with a fictitious database here, so it's fine. But with your own data, you are dealing with a live database. What does that mean? It means that there is no undo button. So if you click delete, that record goes away. So, it's not like your Word document where you can click, undo it, go back to the previous step where you were. No, this deletes the record, and so you have to be careful with that. Obviously, deleting button, deleting capability is not given to anyone. It depends on your access group and so forth. So, and if you don't have that delete button and you think you need the delete button, the capability of deleting, you have to contact your data manager to give you access for deletion. That's the data manager for the agency. All right, so continuing to the right, you have basically your scrolling buttons, whether you want to go to the first record, the last record, your count, 803 out of 803 and so forth. Then you have your refresh button. TE refreshes automatically, but if you are doing an edit and you want to confirm that it shows there, that's what the refresh button is there for. It's just a form of a confirmation. All right. So now you see that to the far right, you have the more button. What is a more button? Well, we'll click on it, and you see that there's many more options. Why is there a more button? The more button has been designed so that, when you have a smaller screen, any button that do not fit within the screen, giving your viewable, sizing specifications, you have the more buttons. Any other button that does not fit on your screen will go there. So here we have invite for, surveys. We have export. One of the questions in the chat was, can you, print or export, reports or listers. Yeah, well, there's your export button here. Here's your print button. Schema, if you want to, set your column, set, that first name, last name setting, this is where your schema will come. So you click on that schema, set the name of it, and then save it, and then it will be saved as a option for next time you want to access. Let's just go ahead and say, last name separate, or let's just do last name. So we're going to go ahead and save it over here. Now notice that it's within my menu over here. So I have my default. Notice this is my default, and I have my last name, which is what I set it to, with the last name separate and the first name. So there's different ways that you can have it. And now just keep in mind that this is only for your account. It will not affect any other account. It's just specifically for your account. All right. So view, it will be just a way to open a certain record. We're going to go ahead and ignore the rest except for merge. Those of you who have the capability of merging, there is the merge button. Notice that is disabled right now. Obviously, because merge requires the selection of 2 records. Not necessarily that I don't have the access, is that it requires 2 records. Notice that once we select those 2 records, we have more buttons available. Merge will be one, and the merge is when, students happen to enter a different ID. So you want to go ahead and merge the 2 records, and the system will take you to, a series of screens. Let's just go ahead and click on it quickly to show you what's going to happen. So I selected the 2 records. The system is gathering the information for those 2 records, and it's going to display it in this form. The system is going to go ahead and highlight the areas that are, you notice the areas are highlighted now, that are inconsistent among the 2 records. So the system TE is going to go ahead and make a suggestion based on the one that has most record, the one that is most updated. TE is going to go ahead and suggest one, but obviously it doesn't mean that it's correct. You still have the option of record 1, record 2, or you can either enter a new information under this box. Then you're going to go ahead and solve each of these boxes that are highlighted. Obviously, these are 2 different records. This is why there's so many, and after you finish with this screen, you are to basically follow all of this. Again, these are 2 different records, and this is why you have so many. Usually you would have, 1, 2, 3 sections here, because technically the student have similar information. It's just the ID is different. All right. So once the process finishes, then the information from both records will be merged. That includes tests, that includes, any enrollments, and so forth, that will be merged, and the wrong ID will be deleted, but just the ID itself, nothing, saved under the ID. That other information will be part of the new record. So everything else gets merged. The ID, the wrong ID, gets deleted. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this, but just to show you, what the merge feature does. We go ahead and say cancel merge here. All right, so continuing over here, we basically covered the merge button, edit, batch edit, and batch insert. That's like the name suggests, is doing editing or inserting records in a batch form. Let's quickly cover, because I think it might be important over here. So batch edit will be, obviously, if you want to edit multiple records at the same time. Obviously, this will be records that pretend to the same information. But student ID will probably not be one good example, but let's say class enrollment. If you are batch editing class enrollment and you want to change that entry date to the class enrollment, they all happen to follow one same date, then you can go ahead and do batch edit. When it comes to student ID, there's not many sections that are consistent. So batch editing will not be one good example. But you also have batch insert. Batch insert is very useful, because once you click on batch insert, you can go ahead and create a registration or enrollment into a program year. Remember how we talk about activity in the current program year? Then you have student in program, a program enrollment, and then student in class, that's a class enrollment, or a test. You can go ahead and create a test, for the student. So that will be in a batch, way. All right, so we covered basically most of these options here. Let's go ahead and turn to the menu over here, or the top menu, we should say. And under here, for each of the columns, basically, as I point out, you have your sort button, and then you have your filter. Once you click on that add filter, which looks like a little funnel, if you click on that, you notice that you get a menu. In this particular that we could just click right now will be student ID. So for student ID, it gives me the options to have start with by default. I usually like using contains, because it's a little more flexible, because whether the student enter 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4, the system is going to go ahead and give me those records that apply. So in this case, there's no student with 1, 2, 3, 4, but again, it gives me a little more flexibility. So I happen to like contains a lot more than start with. All right, so that's one. I'm gonna go ahead and clear that out. Now notice that every column has a add filter, and as you click on it, it all depends on the column. Your student ID had start with, and so forth. This one over here has a date parameter. Your birth date, it has a date parameter. So it all depends the column that you're selecting, what type of filter is gonna go ahead and give you. Gender, obviously we have not applicable, male, female, and non-binary. So there you go. Ethnicity, obviously you expect to see more options. Races, you're supposed to see more options as well. Native language, you're supposed to see more options as well, as you can see over here. All right, but you get the point. Is based on the column that you're adding. All right, so and then you have the multiple records. You have your scrolling bar over here. So we're gonna go ahead and look at our outline over here. So that basically will cover customizing lists and records, filter and sorting. Then we're gonna go ahead and we did some common mistakes. So we're gonna, and we did the current program year filter, and we added columns, and now we're gonna go ahead and do a demographic example. That's basically letter E under section 4. So we're gonna go ahead and click on new student. So we're gonna click on that new button. All right, we're gonna go ahead and create a new record. So one of the questions was, if I have a new student, are we gonna go in the training through the process of enrolling a student? Here it is. There's multiple ways, by the way, to enroll a student. One will be through import. The most common will be through e-test or paper testing, if you're doing paper testing with a entry record, you know, and the other one will be manual entering, which is this right here, creating a new demographic record. So I'm gonna go ahead and enter the ID. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm just gonna do 1, 2, 3. And I'm gonna go ahead and say a fictitious record over here with my name. We're gonna put today's date, dated up, you know, say 2000. That's not my birthday. Then we're gonna go ahead and set up some options. Now, notice that when it comes to the demographics, there's a lot of information that the system will collect if you happen to have it available, whether it's your education, level of education, highest diploma, your GED scores, your high set, ethnicity. Let's go ahead and say Latino, native language, let's say Spanish, race, let's just say white, and so forth. Here's the address section. You know, so we're gonna go ahead and save. If there is a section that it must be entered in order to save, TE would go ahead and tell you. Let's go ahead and save, for example, we're not gonna put any ID for now, and let's try to save. Let's see what the system does. There you go. Well, that's an error. So look at that. So let's go ahead and say okay over here. We're gonna go ahead and now enter 1, 2, 3 and say save. All right, so we save the record. We're gonna go ahead. Notice what happens when you save the record. I don't know if you guys were able to see it, but once I click save, obviously save is now grayed out. The Navigator, the system, TE, now offers me all these different fields. Within these menus, you have in-program years that basically determines whether the student is active or not in the current program year. Remember how we talked about if the student is not active in the current program year, it won't appear in the demographics. So having said that, we're gonna go ahead and close this record and we're gonna click refresh. Again, the system refreshes itself, but just to confirm, and we're gonna look for ID 1, 2, 3. So can anybody, you know, in the chat tell me, are we expecting to see this record? No, right? Probably I answered the question before I finished, you know, saying the question. So as you can see, the system is not going to show me anything. Why? Again, because the student does not have any, you know, activity. Thank you very much. You're right. I see the responses, you know, there. So now, obviously, if this would be a situation where, you know, your, you know, clerk or, you know, enter the demographic, and now you want to go ahead and, you know, enter, you know, any follow-up information such as say class enrollment, you can always click on that filter button, remove the program year, and then click OK. And now the record for Oscar the student appears. Notice that the system gave me all the records. They happen to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously, mine is 1, 2, 3. You know, here's the name over here, Peña Oscar. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this record. And this time I'm going to go ahead and add an in-program years record. So it's just a matter of me clicking new and then select the current program year, which is the 21-22. And we're gonna go ahead and set a site enrollment. So only one site is available at this time, and say save. All right, so now we did this. Obviously, the student has activity in the current program year. I could have also entered class enrollment and any other program enrollment information. So I'm gonna go ahead and close it and close this filter again. So I'm gonna go back to records, student demographics. Sorry, my menu's coming in between over here. So records, student demographics. And I'm gonna go ahead and filter for ID 1, 2, 3. Should I expect to see this record this time? Yes, because it has activity. So we're gonna click OK, and there it is. Oscar the student is there with ID 1, 2, 3. All right, so looking back at that overview, and I know we're getting close now to my time. You know, basically using the Navigator is the one that we edit in the student record. We went through the edit of that student record. So it's just a matter of last thing I would like to cover is, you know, the options you see over here. So notice the format that TE uses. It's where you have a menu on the left, and then you have the information here, you know, on the main section of your screen. Within within this, each of these sections, you have a collapse, and expand a button, and you have a pencil. The pencil button, as you can see right here, as we hover, it says to change to edit mode. So if we click on it, it enables all the fields so that you can go ahead and enter or edit this information. So I can go ahead and say, this is, let's just say OP, about 1, 2, 3. So I'm changing my ID over here, and you can go ahead and, add, any other information that pertains over here, and then we can go ahead and save it. So, but again, that's how you are to do this. Also notice that the system does give you the opportunity to enter an entry and update right from the demographic record. That's very useful, because usually that will be the same, the follow-up process after you enter the demographic is you want to enter that entry, information where you basically, enter a lot of this information that is here as well. So then we're going to go ahead and click on any of the other menus. Notice that the system follows the same thing, where you have the main information over here, you have your header over here with the information where this record is located, and then any opportunity to add or edit, or show any history of records will be down below. Same thing with class enrollment. Obviously, we don't have any information for Oscar the student, but this will be where you are to enter that new record. All right, so the class enrollment that Oscar could have, and so forth. Let's see if we can go ahead and add one quick class over here. Notice that when we click on the menu, you're not bound to this list alone. You can go ahead and click on this, select from lister button, and it gives you the master, extended format list, to select. Again, this was by clicking on select from lister. All right, and you can go ahead and select, a certain class from here. Let's go ahead and use the filter and say ESL, anything that contains with ESL. And let's see my ESL classes. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick this class over here, and then Oscar the student will be enrolled in this program here. So we'll save it. All right, class instance record must be selected. So enter date. Let's just go ahead and say today's date. So 1/27/22. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and click save. Notice that whenever there's something missing, it says a class instant record must be selected. All right, so there you go. Oh, interesting, it went away. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and do one more time. So we said contains over here under class description, and then do ESL. There's campus, peak, that was there, and then we can click save. All right, very good. So now Oscar the student has a class enrollment. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and quickly, do the poll. We have 3 minutes left before we switch it to Martha. So I'm gonna go ahead and do polls, and my poll will be finding records. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and launch the poll, and the poll says help. I added my student onto TE with the student ID, name, and gender, but they're not showing up. What's happening? So go ahead and give me an answer. All right, look at that overwhelming section. Option 3, current filter only shows students with activity in the current program year. Very good. Oh, we have some. It says the user has to import records for it to process. That's, that is the second option, because why? If you are to import, obviously that will automatically create a in program year records, but yeah, you can say that could be correct as well. But technically, to understand the back of things, the process in the back is that the student is not active in the current program year, and any lister, any report would only show you students that are active in the current program year. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll. Thank you very much, and I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Martha. I'm gonna go ahead and stop my sharing. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. How are we doing? How's it going, everyone? Hanging in there? I hope you did well on the polls. I'm not going to do any polls for this purpose, but I'm going to continue with the rest of the training. Well, our last 3 talking bullet points here. We have, let me share my screen here. Everybody see my screen? Okay. Okay.
Yes, we do.
You can give me a thumbs up if you like. You can use your reactions button if you like. So we have the TOPSpro Enterprise adding manual records or adding records manually. I have a question for you. If you guys can type on the chat pod, how do you enter data? Because ultimately the TOPSpro Enterprise is tracking the student and programs information, and a lot of you use it for reporting. So the data is very important. So how do you normally get most of your data there into TOPSpro Enterprise? If you can type in the chat pod, there are 4 different ways of entering data into TOPSpro Enterprise. There's one which is manually entering data. That's one. We have the importing wizard, which if you have a third-party attendance system, you can use that data that you originally added in there and then import it into TOPSpro. Okay, thank you. I see a lot of manually and some do import. The third way of entering data we have is scanning. So manually importing from an attendance system. Another one is using a scanning, like an optical mark reader scanner. If you use paper assessments or paper forms, you can scan them, and that's a third way of entering data into the TOPSpro Enterprise. And then a fourth option, anybody guessing the fourth option is? We have nobody on the chat. Okay, you do both ways, manual and scanning. Okay, well, the fourth way of entering data into TOPSpro Enterprise is through e-tests. That's very good, Michelle. You get the star. Okay, sounds good. So the fourth option would be e-tests. So e-tests is a very helpful tool to collect also important demographic information. So if you see my screen right now, I'm going to take this away from here. Okay. I'm going to show you on how to manually enter some important information, starting off with a site, how to add a new site. Now, I always like to direct our new agencies here from the organization menu. I like them to go to agencies. I mean, even though you have this long menu here, you can click on agencies, and that way you'll see your agency's name. In this case, we're using the Rolling Hills Adult School server. So I will double click on that record, and that will open up all the information, which is very important about our agency, including if you have an image like a logo from your school or something, you can also load it in here. And you see the highlighted section, blue section on the top right here. It's a summary of the main information that you see below. And you also have the number of W2Us that your agency has available if you use e-tests online. But you also have this Navigator on the left-hand side, which has multiple more options here that you can choose from by just single clicking on the area. And then you will see towards the right-hand side, as you can see below the blue section, you're going to have more. You're going to see all the information when you click on any of these buttons right here or any of these options. Test administrations, like program years, users, and we're going to go over some of these in just a bit. But right now, I would like to show you, like, if you're a brand new agency, like how many of you are brand new, like super spanking brand new? You can give me reaction, a thumbs up, or yeah. Most of you are okay. Some of you, Maria, thank you. Some, okay. Embarca, thank you. All right, so Christy Bong, Betty, okay, thank you. It looks like some of you are brand new. So I would always like to direct to organization, agencies, and then double click on your agency so you can see all your agency's information. So now, in order to add a new site, let's say you have one campus I clicked on sites and we have the North Campus. The site ID is 01 and I have another campus that I need to add. So I would just click on this new button in order to add this new site. The container would be the same, the Rolling Hills Adult School. And then the site ID, I would like to keep the same order in how it started with 01 and then enter the site ID 02. And then the site name, I would like to use that abbreviation RHAS : and then South. I'm going to call it the South Campus, right? The time zone will be automatically selected by your agency's area where you are located. And if you're going to be using that site for e-testing as well, I would encourage you to check this box. All right, I'm just going to check it. Then the site contact information, you are welcome to enter the name of the teacher in charge of that site or your full name as well. And of course, you can add address and all further information, although this is not required for you to save the record. The minimum fields are site ID, site name, and that's it. So I'll just go ahead and click on the save button across the top. So that saves my new site. So once I saved my new site, the navigator changes. The navigator on the left always changes when we click on the save button for a certain record. Okay. So a lot of you do manual entry. So we're going to go over demonstrating how to enter users. So you can add your new staff members that come aboard. So I can go ahead and close this last tab if I'd like, so I can see that the new site has been added into the agency information. All right, so you have two sites now. And again, from the left-hand side, we're going to go now to users because I'm going to show you how to enter a new user account for your new staff members. Whenever somebody new joins and they forward you their certificate of completion for proctor training, then you can go ahead and add them into the TOPSpro enterprise. I am right now scrolling down, and as you can see, there are quite a few user accounts for our current database, and I'll click here under the more button and then see that there are 247 user accounts. So, and that's because we're using the Rolling Hills database. You may have a little bit less than that, or maybe more. I don't know. Depends on your agency size. So again, I'm going to click on this new button right here below users, and I'm going to start entering the information that is required. As you can see, the blue section on the top, which is the summary, hasn't been filled out yet. So it's clear, it's blank. We haven't entered anything yet. And where we have the select container, here there are some sections that I am going to collapse just so they don't look as intimidating as with a bunch of clicking buttons and stuff. So this looks a little bit better. And remember, the navigator, you can unpin it if you need a little bit more room to see more information. Okay, so the navigator will be here. If you just hover your mouse, you can go ahead and pin it again. But I want to unpin it for now so I can show you these sections right here. So selecting container. It's important when you have classes. And for that, we have, Oscar was explaining the two different levels, or I'm sorry, Luke was explaining the two different levels of access that we have in TOPSpro Enterprise. One is enhanced and the other one is basic. The enhanced access, you would get it from purchasing a TE license or by purchasing TE units like TOPSpro Enterprise units. But we also have the WTUs, which is the web test units. If you just purchase web test units for e-testing, then you would get basic access, which includes about 8 different basic reports. And then the enhanced access includes all kinds of reports are open for you, as well as the use of classes. You can add classes and then you can track attendance for those students. With the basic access, unfortunately, we can't provide the classes or all the reports, just about 8 basic reports for your students' records. So let's see, when you have classes, when you have enhanced access, you could be giving your teachers access to the database so they can go ahead and log in and add attendance. So you wouldn't necessarily, you would probably need to link with existing personnel when this is the case. But for basic users, and if you don't need them to log into the TOPSpro Enterprise to do anything in there, then you don't have to link anybody with an existing personnel record. And if you have any questions about this, we can stay a little bit later and discuss it after the meeting is over. So I wouldn't worry too much right now for selecting container. Now for user identification, this is crucial for your staff member in order to log in. So the user account, I would just go ahead and type in the email address. In this case, I'm gonna type in my email. And then for password, go ahead and type in, you can do generic, you can do CASAS 1, 2, 3, you can do your agency's organization acronym, something that can come up your mind. I often do like the first name, a lowercase, just because that is pretty simple to remember for the user. So I typed in Martha, retyped it again, and that way it'll become a temporary password. Once you save the record, it's going to become temporary. So upon their first login, they're going to be prompted to reset their password. Okay, so now once we have set up the user account password, we have this little drop down for groups. There are several access groups in the TOPSpro Enterprise system. We have the e-test groups, which they all start with ET. And that means that they will get access, they will get the user access to e-tests online. And if you're the data manager, you're going to see these system levels. And then you have other access groups that start with TE. And that means that these access groups will give the user access into TOPSpro Enterprise. So TE, ET, they're the same letters, they're just opposite. So remember ET for e-test at the system level. TE for TOPSpro Enterprise at your local agency level. And you can place each user under one of each groups, one for e-test and one for TOPSpro Enterprise, and that is allowed and recommended if you need them to go into TOPSpro Enterprise. I'm not saying that everybody should get access, but if they need to, then you can go ahead and sign them up. Not everybody gets into the ET groups as well, because you may have a clerk that is only added, helping you to add new records in your data in your office, and then that person would just need a TE access group depending on the levels of access. So right now I'm just going to add myself into the ET Proctor group and click on the add button. Then you're going to get this certification little message here saying that you have received a copy of their training. And then if you're sure, then yes, confirm. I strongly suggest to keep all these certificates into a special folder in your files so you can keep them handy. Then these boxes here, I would just leave them as is, but if you're welcome to, if you need to disable an account, then you can definitely mark that account as disabled. Of course, this is a brand new account, so I wouldn't be disabling it. So it really depends on what your preferences are. So it looks like we have some questions here in the chat pod. Maybe Oscar and Luke can help out with that. So we have here the user contact information, which is our next section. This is essential as well. The minimum fields for you to enter are the first name, last name, and email address. Of course, you're always welcome to enter address, zip code, phone, state, anything else, but these are not essential for you to save the record. All right. We have other sections here under menu access rights and then data access rights, which this refers to individual menus and data access rights allowed into the user account, into the individual user account. What CASAS always recommends is to get the hold of using access groups, because when you enable an access group into your user, then you don't have to fiddle around and start, checking multiple boxes in here, and then you're not making sure. And what we suggest is to use access groups instead. And we can help you set up your own customized access groups if you need to, so you can call us for that purpose as well. Okay, so once I have my minimum pieces of information here, like first name, last name, email, and the access group, of course, user account and password, I would click on the save button. Okay, once you click on the save button, then you would be allowing your user to log into eTest, in this case, as a proctor. So that way you can confirm. What I will also suggest, let me just add another access group here. You can always do that, enable the user into a TE basic access group. So to see what level of access the TE basic access group would have. So I clicked on the add button. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on save now. Now, my next step to kind of prove what I just did, what to do. So I would right click in this TE icon at the bottom section and click on this TE client little button, so I can open up another instance of TOPSpro Enterprise, as you can see, without closing the one that I have in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and log in now as myself, m.perez@casas.org, which would be my new user account. So I can see what I am entitled now in this database. Oh, here, forgot my password. Here we go. Okay, so for password, I entered my first name, all lowercase. So this is connecting me, and you can always expand or make it a little bit smaller, and then you'll get this user license agreement when you're logging in for the first time. So you'll have to accept this agreement. And then according to the application settings, you're required to change your password, because this is a brand new setting here. So I'll have to reset my password to something else that would comply with the rules here. All right, so now I have saved my password. As you can see, I'm going to expand this now, and I have the start page. So as you can see, my menus are a little bit different. I have a lot of gray out menus because maybe a TE basic access group is not, enabled, doesn't have everything enabled, but I will at least be able to look at my student demographic records and perhaps their test information. So when I go to records, students demographics, and let's say I just want to take a look at the student here, I would double click on that record and then be able to click on tests so I can see their test information. Okay, so with that said, I've shown you how to create a new site and a new user account for your staff members, and how to prove it, or kind of prove it to see what levels of access that the user will have. So I'll go ahead and close that now. And then we do also have here on our list the use of classes for class definitions, or the difference between class definitions and class instances. Instead of me closing all these pages or all these tabs on the top, I always like to use the pages button on your top right, and then you can say close all pages. That way it'll get rid of everything, and then you can start fresh with a clean slate here. So now under organization, again, we have classes and definitions. If you also go to organization agencies, you're also going to find them when you double click on agency. This is just an extra step. You have class definitions here, and let's see through the more button how many classes we have. 749 classes. So we just created a new site. So we're going to add a new class definition. So the difference between class definitions and class instances is that the class definition is where you define the class, where you enter the most basic information such as class ID and a class description, which we're going to click now on the new button so you can take a look at what is added into the class ID. But we also must select a site. This is the site where we're going to add the class. Let's see. Okay, so let's go ahead and just type in. I guess this is grayed out for now, but I see that Luca's posting some links here to our website. So thank you so much for responding to those questions. I'm gonna enter class ID would be 0123. I'm not going to use any extended IDs. This is optional only. A course code is also optional, but a class description, it is strictly required. So ESL basic, that's good. What I'm going to call my class. And if you have like CIP codes or A22 course codes from your own knowledge from your classes information, by all means, go ahead and enter it. I'm not going to enter anything because that's not a required field, but you're always welcome. So then click on the save button. And now here is this is asking me to select a site. So for some reason, it doesn't give me the drop down. So let me go ahead and cancel this. And sorry about that, folks. Let's go the other way around because I think that's going to be the best way. If you go to organization, classes, definitions, and I'm just going to quickly enter the new class information. Once again, you see the drop down is now enabled. So I'm going to select the South Campus and I'm going to quickly enter ESL basic. Then I'll click on the save button. As you can see, the navigator changed on the left. So now that the class definition has been entered, now we need to create a class instance for that definition. So there could be only one class definition and there can be many class instances for one class definition. And that would be like one instance per year at the minimum. So we will click on class instances now, whereas you furtherly refine your class definition. So there's no instances yet because we just created the class definition. So we're going to click on the new button now in order to enter and furtherly refine this class definition. So I'm going to select the current program year. As you can see, the site and campus has already been pre-entered in here, as well as the class definition. So I'm just going to select the current program year. And as you can see, as soon as I clicked on the current, the class start and end date automatically popped up for me. So if this is the case and I want to keep them open, if you have like open enrollment, you can keep them open throughout the whole program year. Otherwise, you can, readjust your start and end dates for that purpose. And then of course, this is an ESL class. So I'm going to choose ESL/ELL as an instructional program. And then as you can see, we have, I'm going to unpin this so you can see everything. If you may, we have some scrolling bars towards the right, and there can be multiple options for this. And again, we can collapse some of these areas like class instance, class intensity, and class definition. So if you have any special programs like state corrections or jails or something that pertains to the class and to the program that you're in, then you can definitely select it. There's many more options like when this class meets and which days, like the intensity. So this would really help define more like what your classes are all about. And then if you have this option in your local agency, then you can also track attendance hours. We're not gonna go too deep on that because maybe not everybody has the enhanced access. So just for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and click on save. And then once we save it, we're gonna pin the navigator back and see that we have a new class instance. If I close this, you're gonna see the new class instance here, and we have an instructional program. Class ID is called the class ID is 0123, and it's the ESL basic. So this is how you manually add a class. So now I'm going to show you how to manually add a student demographic record. If we go to records, we go to students and then demographics. And we have a list of students. We have 804 students for this program year that have activity. I'm going to click on the new button and I'm going to add a new student ID record. As you can see, this opens up in an edit view in an edit mode, so we can start entering all the information. And I'm going to purposely enter our phone number for tech support, just in case you guys don't recognize that name. That number is 800-255-1036. This is for option 2 is for tech support. So I guess I could add extension 2. So I'm going to call this user or this student the tech support student. And you can mark here if they're female, male. You can have, mark any of the demographic information that you may have available. And then, you just go by all the information that you may have from a form of something that the student may have filled out. So I'm just going to go ahead and enter like random information about the student, so you can quickly create one. You have multiple fields in here. If they have any GED scores or TASC or HiSET scores, you're always welcome to enter them. And so we have different ethnicity, race, and language information. So you're always welcome to do that. And I can see that there are more information links posted in the chat pod. So thank you so much, guys, for assisting with that. All right, so then with that said, we have added some basic information about the student. We can always go ahead and click on the save button and just watch this navigator on the left. Once we click save, that's going to change drastically. So we have multiple options now from the navigator on the left. And then we have the options to class enrollments. We can add the student into our newly created site if we wanted to, and also to the recently created class. So once you click on the save button, you have this site enrollment button or area where you can click on add site enrollment, and this little box will pop up. So once you click on the drop down menu, we click on the South Campus and then click the add button. Once you click on the add button, then go ahead and scroll down and click save. That way it will have our student enrolled into the South Campus, and then click on class enrollments, because if I want to enroll them into our class, then I would click on the new button here, select a site where I want to enroll the student in. I'll select the South Campus. The tech support information, well, this is our student. It will be posted in here already. So I would just select the class instance that exists in this current site. So click on the ESL basic. You can adjust your dates if you like, and you can mark the status as well to be active, and then click on the save button on the top. And that way the student is now enrolled in your class. Okay, so any questions you may have, you can always toggle back and forth from your tabs from one to another. So you can use this as an Excel, or think of it as when using an Excel spreadsheet. So TOPSpro Enterprise, like all our information that we are providing you today comes from this TOPSpro Enterprise Basics training. This information, I'm going to be posting this one on our chat pod here. There's a link to this book. There's a lot of a wealth of information on our website as well. So this book comprehends all the information that we have shared today. If you go back to our website, we have the training and support link. So under training and support, you're going to find a lot more there's a wealth of documentation on our website. If you click on TOPSpro Enterprise Help, we definitely have more links in here. And we also have our training, our online training website. If you click on well, training.casas.org, but from our website, if you click on the homepage and then click on online training, you will get to the training website, and then you will need to be logged in, of course. But if you scroll down, then we have the CASAS help documentation and videos, which has been constantly being renewed. And we have a bunch of more documents and videos coming in. So we have here an index of all the an alphabetical index where we have added all our videos and all our documents, and we have, this is a great resource for you to use if you are using training if you're training in TOPSpro Enterprise. And we also have another, if I go back to the home page, we have another TOPSpro Enterprise training in here, which is a self-paced training module. Like today's training is just informational, but you are also welcome to enter into this training. Where is it? It's right here. CASAS remote testing. Help document. Oh, here it is. TOPSpro Enterprise training. There's an introduction to TOPSpro Enterprise training, and then the tracking and monitoring test results is coming in soon. But this, you can also log into it, go through it if you'd like. It is very interesting. So for this one, you will get a certificate of completion. So just in case, I just posted the link on the chat pod. All right, folks. Well, it looks like we are up with time. I truly appreciate you staying all the way through the end, and go ahead and save your chat if you like. Click on those three little buttons on your chat pod and click on save chat so you can have all these wonderful links with a lot of information. Anything else that my colleagues would like to add, or any other last minute questions?
Well, just remember in the chat, there's our contact number. We're open basically from 6 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon, Pacific time, that is. And there's our email and there's our contact number. Feel free to contact us with any further questions. Thank you.
All right, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. We're just going to hang out here for a couple more minutes in case you want to share anything with us, or I don't know, have any last minute questions. You're welcome to post them in the chat pod or open your mic. We can help you address those questions. Thank you. Thank you so much for attending. Anything you would like to add, Luke or Oscar, Michelle? Hi, Michelle.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone, for
I really
attending.
appreciate the presentation. Thank you for all your patience and helping us out.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for calling and for.
Gracias, Oscar.
De nada. Our pleasure.
You guys have a great day.
Thanks.
You too.
Bye.
Take it easy.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Hi, Martha. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Hi,
you.
it's Renee from Torrance.
Hey, Renee.
Hi, I have a question, and maybe any of you, of the three of you, could answer. But we're looking at doing multiple remote tests in our computer lab. And I had spoken to someone over there about setting up the computers and making the computers co-hosts. Are you guys familiar with that setup? And would you have any kind of write-up? I tried looking last night for multiple remote tests, but of course it goes through the breakout rooms. I mean, we'd still have to create the breakout rooms, but there was an option where we could create individual breakout rooms on each of our computer stations in the lab. And then we have multiple proctors, I guess, watching, a few computer stations at a time, but it would be done on one Zoom link. Does that sound familiar?
So for multiple test takers doing remote testing, let me see, let me share my screen here. Okay, so let's do eTestSonline.org/rolling kills. Let's see. All right, rolling kills. So I don't have my station registered, but if you like, I can take a look at your local agency.
Mhm.
eTestOnline.org. What is your agency ID number?
It's 1838.
So let's take a look at your testing sessions and see if I understand this question correctly. Okay, so it looks like you have some sessions going on right now that are active. And then let's say, let's try using, which one do you suggest? Any of these ESL?
Yeah, actually, we were doing the government and history test because it has, it's a listening test. What we were trying to do was bring up a student through each computer remotely using breakout rooms and making the computer stations the co-host, but they would all be logged in through my one Zoom link. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah,
And
so
I think someone's doing it. I'm sorry.
yeah, you can have one Zoom meeting open. Of course, this would have to be well, you have the administrator account, and
Mhm.
then you start the session, and this would have to be a remote session, right?
Yes.
This would have to be a remote session because this one has been started as an on-site session. And then
Yeah.
each stations, these that you have in here, are they in the site or are they because the students are at home and this is their home computer?
Yeah, so these are actually here in our lab, 4 and 5. So a student would have to come in and be placed in the breakout room for 4 and then another student for 5.